Ladies and gentlemen of ShoeTube, in order to be a more well-rounded ShoeTuber, I have purchased the Nike Alphafly 3. I got it on a steep discount, but I wanted to see how it fared against the current crop of racing shoes. Let the week of carbon continue as I take this for a 20-mile long run.
I'm the alpha, omega, best race at the end. The carbon so heartless with diva, I'm in. Follow me, I'll beat you, I like the way. Surrender your money, submit, obey. Follow me, your master, ER, stack high. I'm harder, I'm faster, I speed up your life. Follow me, refueling is futile, my friend. We're in this rough weather until the bitter end. Follow me.
Just when it seemed like winter was over, it happened again. It's like 20 degrees out. I'm pretty well dressed. I was sitting in front of a space heater to warm myself up, but I am in the Alphafly 3 for the first time in my young life, and I'm about to take it for 20 miles, so I'm gonna get to it. Okay, 6.5 miles in. It has taken me this long to get a read on the Alphafly 3s, and I think my initial struggle with them was twofold. First, my left calf/shin is in pain from this week, which I knew going into this run, so that was a struggle. And then second, I was going pretty slow because of that, and I couldn't really feel anything special about the Alphaflys besides the AirPod, which just sort of reads as firm when you're going slow, and not like particularly in a good way, because I like a firm shoe. But yeah, slower paces doesn't really do it for me. As I'm getting under 8-minute pace, the story starts to change a bit, and I got one relatively quick stride at just under 7-minute pace, and it started to feel even better there. So this is a shoe that I need to percolate on a bit more before I give a full opinion. I am happy to report that the faster I go, the better this feels. I was really starting to worry that I wasn't gonna like this like at all, but yeah, it's for sure growing on me. And I've been in pretty choppy snow, thin covering of really frozen snow can tend to be pretty slippery, and the outsole has been nothing short of incredible on this surface. As we all know though, different surfaces provide different slip for different outsoles, and so maybe this is just one that's suited towards this specific type of surface for grip, and maybe it would do worse on something else, but so far so good. I crossed the highway just behind me and the snow stopped. It stopped literally at the highway line. That was an extremely bizarre experience. It was like, shoom, no more snow. So I'm at around 15.5 miles, and I've been pretty quiet on this run, partially because the week is catching up to me, but also I'm still not totally sure how I feel about the shoe. There have been a few miles where I feel somewhat joyful, and there have been a few miles where I feel like this sort of doesn't really have all that much in the way of bounce, which is crazy because this is one of the OG bouncy shoes, but I'm just not getting it right now. The underfoot sensation for me is similar to a firm Piba, like the hollow door feeling. I think the reason that I've been able to do my last 4 long runs without any gels is that I've been increasing my daily run mileage. So I'm doing like 12s and 13s now. And of course I'm doing those without gels. And so through the long run I have 13 miles that I'm already predisposed to being ready to run without gels. So basically what's another 7? The shape of these, it almost feels like I'm running in boots. And not in the worst way, but definitely not in a way that's preferable for me. Okay, let's go do a quick recap of my first run in the Alphafly 3. 20 miles, 8:22 pace. Not too shabby considering the first 6 miles were probably averaging around 9 or 10 minute pace. What with just feeling destroyed and not good overall. Okay, so a lot of the things that I noticed early on is that this didn't feel particularly special at the slower paces. I noticed throughout, though, that the grip was phenomenal, up there with the best. Some of the snow is melting now, but at the very outset of the run, it was a lot snowier, and it's like that thin, really cold layer of fresh snow that is on warmer pavement, so it creates this unseeable slop that's really generally very slippery. And man, this year I've learned so much about the different textures and surface tensions of different types of snows, but yeah, these handled it really well, shockingly well. So it was really slow to start out. That was the journey that I went on today, and around mile 6 or 7 I started to speed up a bit, and that's when these started to come online a little bit more, and just sort of like a steam engine were chugging along. And I think that the pace that I found today most optimal for these was around 7:30, which I don't know if that's a universal pace standard for these, or if it's relative to my mechanics, and maybe that would equate to 8:30 for some of you or 6:30 for some of you. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's where it felt the nicest today. I have a suspicion that if I were able to blast it a little faster, I would have had more fun at an elevated pace. If I could have held on to 650s, I bet these would have felt even better at that pace than at 7:30. But as it stood, truthfully, it still wasn't anything special at the 7:30 pace, and that's kind of mind-blowing to me. This is supposed to be this legendary top-tier racing shoe. There are things that for sure I liked about it. This didn't feel as harsh as your average racing shoe, and I think maybe I think the AirPod is above the plate, right? So, or the plate goes around the AirPod, and where my forefoot, the ball of my foot might normally strike a thinner layer of Piba, it's actually striking the AirPod. I could feel that I'm striking the AirPod regardless of where the plate is actually situated, but since it's not foam compressing onto a harder plate, but instead fabric, or not fabric, but instead plastic compressing air, and that's still a firmer feeling because it's you're landing on plastic, but the plastic is filled with air. And yeah, I don't know, it definitely protected my forefoot a little bit more than something like the Edge Tokyo. I could get a lot more harsh of a feeling out of that than I've gotten so far in the Alphafly. And that's nice. It makes it a nice long run option. But this, honestly, it felt like a boot the entire time I was wearing it. Similar, honestly, to the way the Leaning Red Hair 9 Ultra feels. Not the midsole experience, mind you, but the like ski boot nature of it. And it's weird that I'm getting in this because this is a knit upper. And so it's, to me, I don't know, that shouldn't feel so structured, but it really kind of felt structured to me, which in a race shoe is just strange. Like, that's a strange decision. Sort of like the Hoka Cielo X1, which again, I figured was more, and a lot of people figured was more of a long run shoe than an actual race shoe. So I guess, could it be that the Alphafly 3 is just not a race shoe in 2026? That's a crazy statement, because all these people are winning all these marathons wearing Alphaflys, and it's just like, I mean, maybe I'm just not strong enough of a runner to understand it, but, and that really tracks with how the experience ramped up. So, like, the quicker I got in this, the more I understood it. So maybe I'm just too slow for the Alphafly. I could see it. I mean, this is a shoe for the elites, right? So, but it's interesting because, yeah, I might be slightly too slow for the meta speeds, but those work extremely well for me, not just in my last race, but earlier this week. And the deviates are, to me, I'd have to go back to back, but the deviates are bouncier than the Alphafly by a lot. As far as my memory from this week goes and my experience in these today goes, like comparing those two things together, Wednesday to Sunday, right? So that's pretty decent proximity in time to each other. Yeah, like the DV8s for sure are bouncier than the Alphaflys. It's crazy. I really, really wanted to like these and be excited about them. And I think the next time I have a longer workout, maybe like a half marathon day, that doesn't need to be, because I also don't know if I trust these at the very top end, like sprinting wise, because they feel like a boot. So I don't know if I like would want to run extremely quickly in them either. And yeah, maybe I just need to try it though, because maybe it makes total sense to run really quickly in them, and I just didn't have the legs for it today, and that's why I felt unconfident. Another observation was that I didn't want to take sharp turns in these. Like, it didn't feel safe to take sharp turns in these. And that's not unique to these as racing shoes. Like the Adios Pro 4, I don't want to take sharp turns in. The Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 Low. Even the Adios Pro 3. Granted, that's a while ago. But none of those were pleasant for taking sharp turns. Even the Puma Fast R's earlier this week. Granted, that was the most trashed my legs had been in like weeks. So it's maybe it was just a leg thing. Today could have been a leg thing too, because I have run so many fast miles this week. So I'm pretty exhausted. And towards the end, I was pretty locked in to a really good rhythm in these. And that's one thing I'll say about the Alphaflys for the positive, that's really positive, is I was so locked in towards the end. Like, I haven't looked at my splits, but I'm pretty sure it was all in the 730 range for the entire back half. Maybe with one, well, I got stopped at a bunch of traffic lights throughout. I don't know. I went backwards. Like, there's the route that I generally do through the city that's, I mean, never exactly the same, but I take a little adventure through the city, and it generally follows similar streets. I did that in reverse today, starting at the U of R and going all the way back the opposite way through the city. And I don't know what I did wrong, but I got stopped at so many stoplights where there were actually cars, like there's actually traffic. So I don't know what happened there, but yeah, you could hear it in my voice though that I'm really pleased with that. So, and it's really like, I haven't had a gel for a long run in 4 weeks, and it hasn't changed anything. And like, that's some serious, I'm showing some serious endurance gains since like last year, but even since December of last year, where I don't think I could have done that at all last year. So I'm feeling good. We're gonna go talk more about the Alphafly 3 back to the studio. And we're back in the studio with the Nike Alphafly 3. And that was a really taxing run. I'm pretty fatigued now. At the end, when I got back from the run, I was still in the euphoric runner's high of it all and relying on the last like 6 or 7 miles to buoy my spirits. But now my spirits have been crushed by sitting down. And so now I'm standing up again to give you this review of my first run in the Alphafly 3. And I specify that it's a review of my first run because I do think that this one's going to take a little while to figure out, and I'm going to get more runs in this. I'm not going to just run in a shoe that I paid $180 for once. And yes, I did pay $180 for this. So I think that was after tax even. I can't remember specifically, but steep discount on the shoe. I probably never would have bought this if it was at retail. But at that price, I do think that it was worth scratching that itch of curiosity that I had. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why. But first, I want to go over the specs and materials. So this is a well-known shoe. It's been around for what, like almost 3 years, probably now, 4? I don't even know. It's before I was even a runner that this shoe existed. So I've been running for like some 2.5 years now, and the Alphafly had already existed at the time that I got into running. I never thought I would ever run in this. I think I even have a video from 8 to 10 months ago saying I don't think I'll ever run in the Alphafly, but then it popped up on a steep discount from Nike themselves for that very nice price. So I did decide to pull the trigger on it. But as for some of the specs and materials, I don't know what this upper is called. I feel like it's called Flyknit, but I forgot to look it up before I started recording, and my phone is upstairs. But it's a sort of knit type of booty construction upper, which generally doesn't work for me, although in this situation it kind of was fine. Although I did get a little bit of like tension from one of the laces across the very top eyelet parallel where I was tying the shoe, and I think that frankly was my fault. So, and it doesn't feel like anything anymore, right? So there's no lasting damage there, but it's something that I noticed as soon as I went inside and took off the shoes, that the pressure was alleviated by taking off the shoes. So, but that's most of the time when something like that happens, that's my fault for tying them too tight, and I think that's what happened. The laces are sweet, sweet serrated laces, of course. I don't know if Nike started the trend with the serrated laces, but I do know for a long time people referred to these laces as the Alphafly laces. So maybe they were on the Alphafly first. I know the Metaspeed shoes had them since the Paris at least, so I don't, this is before my time. The heel is pretty padded, actually. I was sort of surprised about that. Though towards the end, as the run was concluding, I feel like the shoe loosened a little bit, and I was getting a really mild, like, Achilles irritation. But again, that didn't persist into when I got back. Like, there's nothing wrong with my Achilles now. So I think it was just an intermittent rubbing that was probably not going to continue to rub. I don't know where it came from, but it disappeared before I got home. So I forgot to mention it in the recap. So and otherwise, I really like this upper. I think it's cool. I think it looks nice. It's interesting. The eyelets themselves being like built into the upper, it's also interesting. It's a cool upper. I like it. Midsole material wise, this is the OG Zoom X. This is the material. That's the material. And then you got the Nike, the Airs, the AirPods, the Air units, the whole shebang, the big bounce bouncers, that's the materials. And then you have the outsole, of course, which I found to be extraordinarily grippy. I was really impressed with the outsole, especially in these like slick, greasier conditions. I didn't expect to be overwhelmed with joy about the outsole, but I was pretty, I wouldn't say overwhelmed with joy, that's pretty dramatic, but I was pleased, let's say that. So those are the materials, probably forgetting something. Oh, and some specs, rewind the clock. Some specs, this weighs 224 grams. It was 225 and 223. So for either foot, and so then it's 224. That's the average of those two numbers, in case you were curious. And it has 40 in the heel and 20. So yeah, it has 40 in the heel and 32 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. So it's heavier than your average guy. I want to talk now about fit. This fit me in a size 10. I don't know if it would have fit me in a 9.5, and I'm glad that I got it in a 10. That's all I really have to say about fit. I'm in between sizes for those of you who are new here. Some shoes, like the Saucony Endorphin Azura, fit me in a 9.5. And then others, much more recently, I've been migrating the majority of my purchases to a size 10 because that generally works a little bit better for me. Because if it goes wrong and it's too big, I'd rather my shoes fit too big than too small, because when they're too small, I get like irritation from the upper and things. So this might have been for a lot of people, if you're in between sizes, this probably was slightly too big for me, but I think that a 9.5 would have been too small. So that's all I had on fit. It fits nicely in a size 10. And now we go into the ride. The ride of the Alphafly 3 is something that was really hard to put my finger on over the course of the run, and I don't think that I described it very well while I was out there. One thing that was easy to capture in my mind of how it felt, and I'm going to attempt to relay to you, is the way the pod feels. And I say pod, there are obviously two pods, and one on the lateral side and one on the medial side. The only one I was feeling under my foot the entire time was the medial pod, where right underneath the ball of my foot. That was the majority of the sensation I was getting from either of the pods. That's what it's called, right? It's a pod. I don't know. What it felt like was it didn't feel quite like I wanted it to at slower paces. It felt much more like a chunk of plastic in a shoe at slower paces than it felt like air inside of a shoe at those slower paces. It felt like there was something hard in there that didn't really do it for me. And it wasn't bad either. It just didn't give me really anything positive, nor really anything negative. It was just a different sensation, but it wasn't one that I would elect to have in a shoe if I were designing my own shoe. As I got into this faster, and I never got very quick today. I was very fatigued on this run, and that's something that we'll come to in favor of the Alphafly in a moment. But yeah, it didn't, until I got to like 7:30 pace, it didn't make any sense to me, the AirPods. But once I got there, it did. There was a property to it that felt like it wanted to keep chugging me along, and it was, yeah, mechanical, very rhythmic. I was able to hold a pace very well in this, or at least it felt like it. I didn't even really look at my stats today because I've just been moving in a groove ever since I got back. But yeah, it felt like it's easy to lull yourself into a pace. I didn't feel like it was really assistive in the way that other carbon-plated racing shoes can feel to me. And that could be two different things. That could be that it isn't that assistive, or it could be that my legs were just obliterated from the week of carbon. And, I did 3 sequential workouts earlier this week. So Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday morning, in 3 different carbon-plated racing shoes, getting PRs throughout that time. I'm destroyed today. Like I came into this run, my shin and lateral calf, like soleus muscle felt like bruised to the touch when I started this run. It's actually feeling slightly better now. And I have a rest day tomorrow, which is very needed right now. I cannot run tomorrow. But so it could just be that I didn't have the juice in my legs, and nothing would have felt assistive if I ran in it today. It's you can't. It's hard for a running shoe reviewer sometimes to parse out the day versus the shoe. And like by the day, I mean the conditions that you're going into your run including the weather conditions, because this was disenfranchising, right? Like we had spring had come, and then it was 20 degrees this morning, and the feels like was 12, and it's just miserable. Like after having a 50-degree day literally yesterday, to come and have to run in like what felt like 12-degree weather is so infuriating. Can't even describe it to you guys. And that wasn't even really what was driving my fatigue today. It was just the fatigue that I was experiencing. Like I was very fatigued coming into this run. So totally possible that I didn't set myself up to fully experience the Alphafly. And because of that, I'm going to refrain from being too harsh on judging the shoe, especially since it's geared towards, running quick marathon times. But part of me felt like I might just be too slow for this shoe, right? Like obviously, some of the world's best athletes love this shoe. They get along with it. They run world records in it. You know what I mean? It's like clearly a very good running shoe. And maybe based on the fact that I felt like it got better as I got faster, like it was clearly better the faster I got. Like that's something that I did observe today. I just couldn't go very fast. So like, yeah, if I maybe were hitting into the 630s today, maybe this would have felt incredible. I just don't know because I wasn't experiencing it. Something that I brought up in the recap, because I wasn't sure how the shoe was structured, is where the air zoom unit is placed. And so it goes foam, plate, and then air zoom unit, I believe. That's what it looks like looking at the structure here. Yeah, the plate is above the zoom unit, which that's not what I expected. I was expecting the plate to scoop underneath the zoom unit as I was running in it, because I didn't get plate feel at all in this. And it felt like something was preventing that plate feel, but maybe it is just that the air units being under the plate are able to defray the impact forces of the ground a little bit better than foam would. And maybe that's where the tech comes into play, and maybe that's why it feels useful. Like it really did kind of just feel like I was running on plastic. Which isn't the best feeling. And that was the majority of the time that it felt like that. It was 830s or slower, right? When I got up into the 730s, it really didn't feel as specifically like I was running on plastic, but it never felt like I was getting plate feel, and it never felt as harsh as other carbons feel. Especially at the slower paces. It just didn't feel very lively at the slower paces, but it never felt super harsh. Like if you try to take the Edge Tokyo for a run at a slower pace, like a 8:30 or 9-minute pace, you're going to be very disappointed. And God forbid doing that with a fast R, that would be terrible. But this felt like maybe a bit more normal of a shoe at those lower paces, those slower paces. Uh, but it didn't feel very bouncy at those paces either. And even at 730, it didn't feel particularly bouncy. Like easily the Leaning Red Hair 9 Ultra is a bouncier shoe. Easily the DV8 Nitro Elite 4 is a bouncier shoe. Subjectively to my own experience, of course, I can't say definitively that that's the case, but yeah. That's how it felt underfoot so far in testing. The grip, like I said before, is phenomenal. And so far, I think the real question mark for me is, would I ever race in this? And like, based on today's run alone, no chance. There are faster shoes. But that could change if I get a solid workout in this and see, maybe I was wrong about how it performs. Maybe it really continues to gradually get better and better the faster that you get, and it doesn't plateau or anything. It did feel like, okay, so here's a shoe that has a similar weight to this, the Anta C2027. That felt like a faster shoe to me than the Alphafly 3. And I mean, I'd have to put them head to head to, do a fair comparison here. But yeah, they're about the same weight. They're like 220 grams. The Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 Low, that feels more explosively bouncy than this does. Also the same weight. And so it's like, this feels like a boot a little bit. And I was saying this during the recap, but what do I mean when I say a boot? It feels like if you had a boot on your foot, like if you were wearing a Timberland. No, that's aggressive. It obviously doesn't feel like that, but the geometry of it is, I don't know, it's pretty like flat through the entire midfoot, and it's only really a late stage rocker that it does bring you forward. Like the rocker's decent in this, but the really flat midfoot geometry maybe is what I'm getting of the bootishness, or maybe it's just the really wide, like it's a wide forefoot. So maybe like that's what feels bootish to me. But it felt like a big chongus under my foot, and that's not. I'm used to more svelte, narrow racing shoes, having run through 2 generations of the Metaspeeds for my last 2 marathons, and like that. Those are the Paris especially is narrow, but the Tokyo is relatively narrow as well. And like I raced in the Streak Fly for my like 5K or marathon or half marathon relay recently, and that's extremely narrow. And like I don't know, it seems like I do really fine in narrow shoes. So when something's a little bit girthier, like Big Bertha over here, Big Gertha, Elf. Oh man, I'm dying, guys. I'm so tired. Yeah, it's just a thick shoe. I don't know what to tell you. It feels like a lot of shoe for me. It doesn't feel very nimble through the corners. That's something that I tend to look for in a racing shoe, is just navigability of the corners. And this just doesn't, I don't think that was a today thing either. This just doesn't have navigability in the corners. It's not svelte. It's not narrow, and it's not a dart. It's more of a freight train of a shoe. So like if you wanted to get up to speed and chug along indefinitely and maybe become an unstoppable force, I could see this being the shoe for you. But if you want to carve through a race in like a speedy race car type of shoe, this is like a Mustang, like straight line speed versus something like a Lotus Elise or something, I barely know cars anymore. I used to be interested in cars, but it's been a long time. Yeah, not a track day shoe for sure. So that's been all of my thoughts on the Alphafly 3 so far, but there will be more to come, rest assured. In the meantime, I appreciate all of you for watching, and as always, stay in motion.